Please stand and join us in singing the Matovu. Matovu, oh haleka Yaakov, Mishkela Tereka Israel, Matovu, oh haleka Yaakov, Mishkela Tereka Israel. How goodly are your tents, O Yaakov, your dwelling places, O Israel. As for me, through your abundant kindness, I will enter your house. I shall prostrate myself toward your holy sanctuary in awe of you. O Yahweh, I love the house where you dwell and the place where your glory resides. I shall prostrate myself and bow. I shall kneel before Yahweh, my Maker. May my prayer to you, Yahweh, be at a favorable time. O Elohim, in your abundant kindness, answer me with the truth of your salvation. In Messiah Yehoshua. Amen. You may be seated.
Welcome to Congregation Beit Lechem. Our goal is to fulfill our call to guard the commandments of Torah and to have the testimony that Messiah Yehoshua is the Redeemer of Israel. Moses rejoiced in the gift of his portion that you placed on his head when he stood before you on Mount Sinai. He brought down 2 stone tablets in his hand on which is inscribed the observance of the Sabbath. So it is written in your Torah, and the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to make the Sabbath an eternal covenant for their generations. Between me and the children of Israel, it is a sign forever that in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. You did not give it, Yahweh, our El, to the nations of the lands, nor did you make it the inheritance of our king of the worshippers of graven idols. And in its contentment the uncircumcised shall not abide, for to Israel, your people, you have given it in love, to the seed of Jacob, whom you have chosen. They shall rejoice in your kingship, those who observe the seventh. They will all be satisfied and delighted from your goodness, and the seventh you found favor in it and sanctified it. Most coveted of days you called it, in remembrance of the act of creation. Our El and the El of our forefathers, may you be pleased now with our rest. Sanctify us with your commandments and grant our share in your Torah. Satisfy us from your goodness and gladden our souls with your salvation, and purify our heart to serve you sincerely. O Yahweh, our El, with love and favor, grant us your holy Sabbath as a heritage, and may all Israel, the sanctifiers of your name, rest on it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, who sanctifies the Sabbath. Tehillim 139. You have covered me in my mother's womb. I give thanks to you, for I am awesomely and wondrously made. Wondrous are your works, and my being knows it well. My bones were not concealed from you when I was shaped in a hidden place, knit together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body, and in your book all of them were written, the days they were formed, while none was among them. And how precious are your thoughts to me, O El! How great has been the sum of them! If I should count them, they would be more than the sand. When I wake up, I am still with you. Search me, O El, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if an idolatrous way is in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. The Barku. Bless Yahweh, the Blessed One. Blessed is Yahweh, Blessed One for all eternity. Baruch hu et Yahweh Hambarak. Baruch Yahweh Hambarak Leolam Vayet. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
6 days you shall labor and do all your work.
But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work.
For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. That is why Yahweh blessed the Sabbath and hallowed it.
Speak also unto the children of Israel, saying, Above all, my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. If you do turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my set-apart day, and shall call the Sabbath a delight, the set-apart day of Yahweh esteemed, and shall esteem it, not doing your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words, then you shall delight yourself in Yahweh, and I shall cause you to ride on the heights of the earth, and feed you with the inheritance of Jacob your father, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken. Blessing over the children. Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob, we pray for these children to know that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. Children, heed the discipline of your father, and do not forsake the Torah of your mother, for they are fair wreath on your heads and chains about your neck. Children, obey your parents in our Master Yeshua, for this is right, and the first commandment with promise is this: honor your father and your mother, that it may go beautifully for you, and your life may be prolonged on the earth. And parents, do not provoke your children, but train them up in the discipline and doctrine of our Master Yeshua. For there is no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in the truth. Remember, all the paths of Yahweh are mercy and truth to them that seek his covenant and his testimonies. Let the words of your mouth and the meditation of your hearts be pleasing before Yahweh, your helper and redeemer. The loving commitment of Yahweh is from everlasting to everlasting upon those who fear him, and his righteousness to children's children. May you always crave the word as being the pure spiritual milk by which you are nourished up to life. For whatever is true, whatever is honest, whatever is just, whatever is of good report, if there is any uprightness, and if there is any praise, think on these. Finally, the peace of Elohim, which surpasses all knowledge, will keep your hearts and your minds through Yeshua the Messiah. Amen. Please stand for the Messiah prayer. Blessed are you, Yahweh, who has given us the way of salvation in Messiah Yehoshua.
Walk among us filled with your Spirit, the only one who ever fulfilled your Torah perfectly.
He healed the sick and raised the dead. The multitudes of our people sought his touch.
He taught as no other man taught, bringing forth the treasures of the Torah with authority.
How the children sought him, the lepers he touched and made clean.
He wrote,
How the despised and the outcast found love and release from their sin. How the hypocrites feared him whose words uncovered their sin. Despised and rejected, acquainted with grief, he bore the sins of Israel. All of us, like sheep, went astray, turned every one to his own way. Our iniquities were laid upon our King. The sins of this world became his burden to bear. He rose from the dead and opened the way to life everlasting. Praise be to his name. We are in him. His spirit empowers. New life is ours with joy and peace. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et derech hayeshua b'Mashiach Yehoshua. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the way of salvation in Messiah Yehoshua. Amen. The blessing of the Shema. Baruch atah Yahweh, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or Uvarei Chosek Osei Shalom Uvarei Ra. Blessed are you, Yahovah our Elohim, King of the universe, who forms light and creates darkness, makes peace and creates evil. Shema Yisrael, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malkuto, Leolam Vayed. Hear, O Israel, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah is one. Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom for all eternity. Amen. V'ahavta et Yahovah Elohecha b'kol lavuka uv'kol nafsheka uv'kol me'adecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anoki matzavaka hayom al levavecha v'shinan tam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtika bevatecha uv'lektika v'aderek uv'shakbeka uv'kameka uv'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letod fot bein aneka uv'tav tam al mezuzot meteka uv'ish araka. And you shall love Yahovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And have these words which I command you this day be upon your heart. And you shall teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you retire, and when you arise. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and let them be frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. V'ahavta l'iraka kamoka. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Amen.
You may be seated.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. There is to be one Torah for the native born and for the stranger who sojourns among you. Bamidbar, Numbers 15:16. If you'll join me for the Ayin Kamoka. Ayin Kamoka Elohim Yahovah V'yein Kemaseka Melkuka Melku Kol Amim Umem Shelteka Bekal Dor Vador Yahovah Malek Yahovah Malak Yahovah Yimlok Leolam Vayed Yahovah Oz Leomitain Yahovah Yevarek Edamo Shalom. There is none like you among their gods, Yahovah, and there is nothing like your works. Your kingdom is a kingdom throughout all generations, and your dominion is forever. Yahovah reigns, Yahovah has reigned, Yahovah will reign forever and ever. Yahovah will give strength to his people, Yahovah will bless his people with peace. The Vayehi ben Soharon. Vayehi ben Soharon, Veyomer Moshe, Kuma Yahovah, Veyafutsu oiveka, Veyanusu mesaneka, mepaneka, Ki mizeon teze Torah, Ki mizeon teze Torah, Udavar Yahovah, Me'Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'Kedushuato. When the ark would travel, Moshe would say, Arise, Yahovah, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee from you. For the Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of Yahovah from Yerushalayim. Blessed is he who gave the Torah to his people Yisrael in his holiness. May the Father of compassion have mercy on the nation that is born by him, and may he remember the covenant of the spiritually mighty. May he rescue our souls from the bad times and upbraid the evil inclination to leave those born by him. Graciously make us an eternal remnant and fulfill our requests in good measure for salvation and mercy. May he help shield and save all who take refuge in him. Now let us respond, Amen. All of you ascribe greatness to our Elohim and give honor to the Torah. Arise, Dale ben Harel, an Israelite, and come to the bema to read from the Torah. Blessed is he who gave the Torah to his people Yisrael in his holiness.
Baruchu et Yehovah Hamvorak. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'karbanu mikol olamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Yehovah Noten HaTorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from all peoples and given us his Torah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Our reading today is from Bereshith, or Genesis 24:62 through 25:16. And the Maftir is 17 through 18. And Yitzchak came from the way of Beer Lahi Roi, for he dwelt in the south. And Yitzchak went out to meditate in the field in the evening, and he lifted his eyes and looked and saw the camels coming. And Rivkah lifted her eyes, and when she saw Yitzchak, she dismounted from her camel. And she had said to the servant, "Who is this man walking in the field to meet us?" And the servant said, "It is my master." So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Yitzchak all the matters he had done. And Yitzchak brought her into his mother's Sarah's tent, and he took Rivkah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Yitzchak was comforted after his mother's death. And Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimran, and Quakshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Yeshbak, and Shawah. And Yeshan brought forth Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Asherim and Litzaim and Lehamim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah and Epher and Hanuk and Abida and Eldaha, and all these were the children of Keturah. And now Abraham gave all that he had to Yitzchak. But to the sons of the concubines who Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living, and sent them away from his son Yitzchak eastward to the land of the east. And these are all the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 175 years. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, aged and satisfied, and was gathered to his people. And his son Yitzchak and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zoar the Hittite. And the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth, there Abraham was buried with his wife, with Sarah his wife. And it came to be after the death of Abraham that Elohim blessed his son Yitzchak, and Yitzchak dwelt in Beer Lahai Roi. And this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Mitzrayite, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names according to their generations, the firstborn of Ishmael, Neboioth, then bore Ketar, and Abdiel, and Mibsham, and Duma, and Massa, Hadar, and Timah, Itor, Napshi, and Kedemath. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names, and by their towns and their settlements, 12 chiefs according to their tribes. Amen. Sorry about that pronunciation, but these, and this is the Maftir. And these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 37 years, and he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. And they dwelt with Hawala as far as Shur, which is east of Mitzrayim. As you go toward Asherah, he settled before all his brothers. Amen. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu taret farmet. Let me start that over. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu taret hamet v'chayei olam nata b'tikenu. Baruch atah Yehovah Noten HaTorah, Noten HaTorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen.
He who blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, may he bless Dale ben Harel. He has come up to read from the Torah in honor of Yahovah and his word. As a reward for this, may the Holy One, blessed is he, protect him and rescue him from every trouble and distress, from every plague and illness, and may he send blessings and prosperity in his every endeavor, together with all Yisrael his brethren. Now let us respond, Amen. Please join us in the Vezot. Vezot HaTorah, Asher Sham Moshe, Lifnei b'nei Israel el pei Yahovah biyad Moshe. And this is the Torah that Moshe placed before the children of Israel at the command of Yahovah through Moshe's hand. Return, O Yahovah, to the countless thousands of Israel. Amen. And now you may be seated. And I would like to call up Yochanan ben Levi to read from the Haftarah. The opening blessings for the Haftarah. Baruch atah Yahovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar binvim tovim v'rezav v'derahim hanei amarim be'et met Baruch atah Yahovah haboker b'torah uv Moshe ado uv Yisrael amo uvinviye haimet vazedek. Blessed are you, Yahovah our Elohim, King of the universe, who has selected good prophets and was pleased with their words which were spoken truthfully. Blessed are you, Yahovah, who chooses the Torah, your servant Moshe, your people Yisrael, and prophets of truth and righteousness.
We're reading today from Malachim Aleph, which is 1 Kings, chapter 1, verses 1 through 31. And sovereign David was old, advanced in years, and they covered him with garments, but he could not get warm. So his servants said to him, Let them seek for our master a sovereign, a young woman, a maiden, and she shall stand before the sovereign, be his companion, and shall lie in your bosom, so that our master the sovereign gets warm. And they sought for a beautiful young woman in all the border of Israel, and found Abishag the Shunammite, and brought her to the sovereign. And the young woman was very beautiful, and she was a companion for the sovereign, and served him, but the sovereign did not know her. And Adoniah, son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I reign. And he prepared for himself a chariot and horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. Now his father had not worried him at any time by saying, Why have you done so? He was also very good looking, and he was born after Absalom. And he talked to Joab, son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they supported Adoniah. But Zadok the priest, and Benaiah, son of Yehoiada, and Nathan the prophet, and Shimei, and Ray, and the mighty men who belonged to David were not with Adoniah. And Adoniah slaughtered sheep and cattle and fatlings by the stone of Zeholeth, which is by En Rogel. He also invited all his brothers, the sovereign sons, and all the men of Yehuda, servants of the sovereign. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet, or Benaiah, or the mighty men of Shalomo, his brother. Nathan then spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Shalomo, saying, Have you not heard that Adoniah, son of Haggith, has become sovereign, and David our master does not know it? And now, come, let me give you advice, and deliver your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go immediately to sovereign David, and say to him, Did you not, my master, O sovereign, swear to your female servant, saying, Certainly your son Solomon shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Why then has Adonai who become sovereign? Look, while you were still speaking there with the sovereign, let me come in after you and confirm your words. And Bathsheba went into the room to the sovereign. Now the sovereign was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was serving the sovereign. And Bathsheba bowed, did obeisance to the sovereign. And the sovereign said, What do you wish? And she said to him, My master, you swore by Jehovah your Elohim to your female servant, saying, Certainly Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. And now, look, Adonai has become sovereign, and now my master the sovereign, you do not know about it. And he has slaughtered great numbers of bulls and fatlings and sheep, and has invited all the sons of the sovereign, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army, but he did not invite Solomon your servant. And you, my master, O sovereign, the eyes of all Israel are on you, to declare to them who is going to sit on the throne of my master, the sovereign after him. Otherwise it shall be, when my master the sovereign rests with his fathers, that I and my son Solomon shall be considered sinners. And see, while she was still speaking with the sovereign, Nathan the prophet also came in. And they informed the sovereign, saying, Here is Nathan the prophet. And when he came in before the sovereign, he bowed down before the sovereign with his face to the ground. And Nathan said, My master, O sovereign, have you said, Adonai shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne? For he has gone down today, and has slaughtered great numbers of bulls and fatlings and sheep, and has invited all the sovereign sons and the commanders of the army, and Abiathar the priest. And look, they are eating and drinking before him. They shall say, Let sovereign Adonai live. But he has not invited me, your servant, nor Tzadok the priest, nor Ben-Yahu the son of Yehoiada, nor your servant Solomon. If this matter is from my master the sovereign, then you did not let your servant know who should sit on the throne of my master the sovereign after him. And sovereign David answered and said, Call Bathsheba to me. So she came into the sovereign's presence and stood before the sovereign. And the sovereign took an oath and said, As Jehovah lives, who has ransomed my life out of all distress, even as I swore to you by Jehovah Elohim of Israel, saying, Certainly Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne, my place. Even so I do this day. And Bathsheba bowed with her face to the earth, and did obeisance to the sovereign, and said, Let my master sovereign David live forever.
Join us in the closing Haftarah blessings. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam, Zor kol halamim, Zedek b'kol hadirot, Ha'el haneman, Ha'omer ve'oseh, Hamdabar kayam, Shekol devarav, Et met vazedek, Niaman, Atahu Yehovah Eloheinu, V'nimin devaraka, V'dar vardkad midvareka, Akol arishu rekam, Kiel malek niaman, V'rakam anata, Baruch atah Yehovah, Ha'el haneman, Me'kol devarav. Blessed are you, Yehovah our Elohim, King of the universe, Rock of all eternity, faithful in all generations, who says and does, who speaks and makes it come to pass, all of whose words are true and righteous. Faithful are you, Yehovah our Elohim, and faithful are your words, for not one word of yours is turned back unfulfilled. For you are a faithful El and King. Blessed are you, Yehovah, the Elohim who is faithful in all his words. He who blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, may he bless Yochanan ben Levi, because he has come up to read from the Haftarah. As a reward for this, may the Holy One, the Father of our Messiah, blessed is he, protect him and rescue him from every illness, and may he send blessings and success in his every endeavor, together with all Yisrael his brethren. Now let us respond, Amen. Thank you. And now I would like to call up Paul ben Avraham to read from the second writings. If you will join us in the opening blessings for the second writings. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Mashiach Yehoshua v'hakatavim shel talmudin. Baruch atah Yehovah noten ha-brit ha-torah. Blessed are you, Yahovah our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us Messiah Yehoshua and the writings of the Talmudim. Blessed are you, Yahovah, giver of the covenant of the Torah.
The second writings comes from Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 17. The book of genealogy of Yeshua Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. Abraham brought forth Yitzchak, and Yitzchak brought forth Yaakov, and Yaakov brought forth Yehuda and his brothers. And Judah brought forth Peretz and Zerah by Tamar, and Peretz brought forth Hezron, and Hezron brought forth Ram, and Ram brought forth Amminadab, and Amminadab brought forth Nahshon, and Nahshon brought forth Solomon, and Solomon brought forth Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz brought forth Obed by Ruth, and Obed brought forth by Yishai, and Yishai brought forth David, the son of Sovereign. And David the Sovereign brought forth Shalomos by Uriah's wife, and Shalomo brought forth Rehoboam, and Rehoboam brought forth Abijah, and Abijah brought forth Asa. And Asa brought forth Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat brought forth Joram, and Joram brought forth Uzziah. And Uzziah brought forth Jotham, and Jotham brought forth Ahaz, and Ahaz brought forth Hezekiah, and Hezekiah brought forth Manasseh, and Manasseh brought forth Amon. Amon brought forth Yoshiah, and Yoshiah brought forth Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babel. And after the exile to Babel, Jeconiah brought forth Shealtiel, and Shealtiel brought forth Zerubbabel. And Zerubbabel brought forth Abihud, and Abihud brought forth Abner, and Abner brought forth Eliakim. And Eliakim brought forth Azor, and Azor brought forth Zadok, and Zadok brought forth Akim, and Akim brought forth Elihud. And Elihud brought forth Eleazar, and Eleazar brought forth Matan, and Matan brought forth Jacob, and Jacob brought forth Joseph, the husband of Miriam, whom was born Yeshua, who is called Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David until the exile of Babel were 14 generations, and from the exile to Babel unto the Messiah were 14 generations.
Amen. And the closing blessings for the second writings. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu hadavar haemet v'chayei olam nata botkenu. Baruch atah Yehovah asher natan lanu Mashiach Yehoshua v'hakatavim shel talmudin. Blessed are you, Yahovah our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the word of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahovah, who has given us the Messiah and the writings of the Talmudim. Amen. He who blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, may he bless Paul ben Avraham, because he has come up to read from the second writings in honor of Messiah and his teachings. As a reward for this, may the Holy One, the Father of our Messiah, blessed is he, protect him and rescue him from every trouble and distress, from every plague and illness, and may he send blessing and success in his every endeavor, together with all Yisrael his brethren. Now let us respond, Amen. If you'll please stand for the Etz Chaim. Etz Chaim hi lama kazim kiba ve'tom he'ameha uhushar darakeha darkei noam Kegtol nativoteha shalom hashivanu Yahovah aleika banashuva Kadesh, Kadesh Yameinu, Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. It is a tree of life to those who take hold of it, and those who support it are praiseworthy. Its ways are the ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Bring us back, Yahovah, to you, and we shall come. Renew our days as of old. Amen. And you may be seated. Anyone doing a mini midrash this week? Anyone have anything they want to talk about? And here you go, Dad. That's right. The lapel, or do you want?
Are we good? Okay. Hey guys. Shalom. All right. So I gotta tell y'all, I kind of messed up here. I mean, I didn't really mess up, but so I originally chose this portion because I love the story of Rebecca and Isaac, and there's a lot of prophecy in that portion surrounding the bride, the way the bride should be, the way the bride came to Isaac, and parallel to how we are to be the bride to prepare for Yeshua, our bridegroom, of course. And so that was what I originally had planned to, that's why I picked this several months ago. That's what I really wanted to talk about. And then I kind of messed up because this has literally nothing in this at all about that. I thought to myself, okay, well, the name of this portion is Chayei Sarah, right? So I'm like, well, let's just do like a quick look back. Let's just do a quick review of her life. And then as I started getting into it and looking at the scriptures surrounding Sarah, it ended up developing into this whole thing, into this whole study. So it's not real long. It was kind of an in-between length. It was like a little too long to really add in the other portion, but it's not real long. But I think it's kind of beneficial because, like Moshe was saying last week, how many times, I know myself, like we read through our portions, but we don't really read through our portions. And like how many times do we stop and smell the roses, so to speak, you know? Especially where Sarah's concerned. Like, what's the first thing you think of when you think about Sarah? You think about Hagar, right? And I will confess, I have never liked Sarah. Like, her actions in that one chapter frustrated me so much. I mean, it really used to grind my gears that I just always kind of like wrote her off. And it was just amazing when you stop, when you actually extract the scriptures about her from the beginning, from the time that she's introduced. There's so much more about her. And so my goal is not to teach you anything new. I doubt you're going to learn anything new about Sarah, but to hopefully make us just take like a little bit deeper look at her, a little second look at her, to see that there was so much more to her than her mistake with Hagar, that she made with Hagar. And that's what I found, and I found it to be very edifying. And you know, it's important that we do this, because while we might not necessarily learn something new, maybe when we shine a light on something, we look at it in a different way, even though we already know it. And you know, I think our goal every week when we're doing our studies or any time we're in the Word is not to not to, like for a teacher, it's important that I don't create things that are to impress the congregation. It's about reading his word, and there's everything that you need is in here. And so, you know, I'm sorry if this is a little basic for you, but it's just the way that it's going to be. So, Sarah. So we're introduced to Sarah in chapter 11, right? And then her name, at that time, her name is Chayei, which is really kind of interesting because, of course, so we know that Sarah means my princess, or it means princess, I guess. And then Chayei always was told to me it means like my princess or my lady, something like that. And it's really supposed to kind of signify or show how Sarah has progressed from like this sort of leading local lady to this like global matriarch, right? To go from my lady to just, you know, princess, or my princess to princess. And those those are the strict definitions of her name, and that's true. But I just stumbled upon something while I was, because I really wanted to understand Abram versus Abraham, and Sarai versus Sarah. And so I started looking at the etymology of her name, and you may all know this, but what really popped out to me, just sort of on accident, is that the root word for Sarai, and so I should just preface this too by just saying that, like the name Yahweh, the name Sarai, the vowel pointings have been lost over the years. So they really don't actually know how it's actually pronounced, just like that. So we don't know really if it's like a shin or a sin necessarily at the beginning of it. But you know, the root word is the shin and the resh and the hey. And that is the same root word as is found in the word Israel. And I never knew that before. Israel can be broken down into two parts, right? It's the shin and the resh and the hey, but it starts with the aleph and the lamed for El. And of course we know that Israel means to wrestle with God, or quarrel with God, wrestle with El, right? Or quarrel with El. So you know, you leave off that the aleph and the lamed for El, you have the exact same root word. So Israel is actually Sarai El. So it kind of lends us another facet to her character, because we start to see that maybe another characteristic can sort of be applied to Sarah, where she's sort of quarrelsome, where she sort of, you know, struggles and wrestles, just in the same way Israel means to wrestle or quarrel with El. We can kind of see that, you know, we're sort of can assign this characteristic to Sarah as well, and that makes perfect sense, right? Because we're reading about Sarah, and she's pretty feisty, right? Like she quarrels with Hagar, and at times she quarrels with Abraham, and for the most part she quarrels with herself too, and with her own destiny. And part of what I think, you know, going from Sarai to Sarah, you know, it's moving from this leading local lady to this global matriarch, but it's also her coming into sort of the fullness of her destiny and the fullness of what she was, you know, supposed to accomplish for Yahweh. So, you know, that made perfect sense to me when I saw that. I was like, oh yeah, she's definitely quarrelsome. I can see that. Okay, so we're introduced to Sarah in chapter 11, in 29, and I'll read 29 through 30. It says, "And Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Yiscah. And Sarai was barren; she had no child." Okay, so first thing we see is, in this translation especially, it's not real clear whose kid Sarah is. And I know there are differing opinions on her relation to Abraham. And I know that in Genesis, in 2012,
when Abraham says, truly she's my sister, she's the daughter of my father, not the daughter of my mother, and then she became my wife. So people always say that she's his half-sister. I tend to agree more with the Talmudic description, was that she is his niece, because back then, those terms, father, mother, brother, sister, they were used very, very liberally to basically just distinguish a close relative. And so, you'll even see it, I think in 14:14, Abraham calls Lot his brother too. And of course, we know that Lot is his nephew. And he calls him that. And even in the Brit Hadashah portion we read today, the first thing it says, Yeshua, the son of David. So what it's really saying is in the line of David. So when he's saying she's my sister, to me, I believe that she is in the line of Terah and not actually his actual half-sister. To me, I believe she's the daughter of Haran, so his niece. And so, but it's not real clear. So that's, you can take that any way you want, but it's basically just saying she's, and also if you look in some other translations, actually I keep the Holloman Christian Standard Bible on my nightstand because it's just the Bible that I grew up with, and the one that I know the most. And actually when you read it in 29, it actually sounds like the part where it says, and Haran's children were Lot and Milcah. It actually sounds like that actually is applying to Sarah too, the way it's written in that one. So also if you read in some translations, you might find that it's a little more clear too. But that's just me. But the main thing here is like what it tells us right away in 30. The first thing that it says about Sarah is that she's barren, right? And it repeats this like over and over, and this seems to be like the dominant theme of Sarah's life, is that she's barren. And what we find over and over in our scriptures is that anytime a woman is called barren, it's for the glory of Yah. It's for the glory of Yah, not only because one, they're and I'm not saying like I don't wish infertility on any woman I know, especially then. That is like your womanhood, and it's so it would be very painful and very shameful for a woman. But always when we read about these barren women, it's to the glory of Yah, because every child is a miracle. But then when a child is born to a barren woman, it's everybody everyone's like praising Yah and everything. And I think that's amazing. But the other thing that it points out to me is that you can be childless and still produce seed. Okay, so, right, like I have a love-hate relationship with the half-Torah portion in Isaiah 54. It's a very emotional portion for me. But it sort of proves, it kind of drives this point home. It says, "Sing, O barren one, you who did not bear. Break forth into singing and cry aloud, you who have not been in labor. For the children of the deserted one are more than the children of the married women, said Yahweh. Enlarge the place of your tent, let them stretch out the curtains of your dwelling. Spare not, lengthen your cord and strengthen your stakes. For you shall break forth to the right and to the left, and your seed shall inherit the nations and make the deserted cities inhabited." And that's to be a lesson for us, that planting seeds is not related to having a child, to having a physical descendant. Because we know that Esau was the physical descendant of Jacob, but he didn't bear the same fruit as Jacob, right? Or, I'm sorry, as Isaac. Go back one. Esau, the son of Isaac. And so it's about bearing fruit, and it's just like in the New Testament, the parable of the sower. We're constantly sowing seed when we tell people about the word, and we talk to them about Yahweh and about Yeshua and about the commandments. That's how we're sowing seed, and that's how we are going, like it says, that's how we are to stretch out our curtains and dwellings. It says, spare not, because you're going to break forth to the right and the left. And so that's for men too, sowing that seed. And that's how, in that way, each one of us can fulfill the command to go forth and be fruitful and multiply. And I'm always worried as a single woman about fulfilling that command. But I don't have to worry about fulfilling that command because every time I'm sowing a seed, I'm hoping that it falls on good ground, right? But every time I'm sowing a seed, I know that I'm multiplying the children of Yahweh. So, Sarah, being barren, lets us know that the glory of Yahweh is going to be revealed through her. And so that's why I think it really, really drives it home over and over. It keeps saying this about her. All right, so back to 11. So 11, we meet Sarah. She's married to Abraham. Then in 12, she comes out of the land of their relatives to the land of Canaan with Abram at that time, Abram. And this is really important. We definitely overlook the fact that those were her people too. And it required a leap of faith for her too to come out with him and head into this foreign land, especially, not knowing what may be asked of her. And of course, we know the next few chapters what is going to be asked of her. And it requires a great deal of bravery and strength. And so, I don't think we give her enough credit for, one, I think that it shows that she's dedicated to Yahweh in the same way that Abraham is. I mean, she's dedicated in doing what he has told them to do. And that she's dedicated also to her husband, to Abraham. And so right off the bat, we're seeing this like really strong woman, this really brave woman as far as we know. She didn't even object, She was like, let's do it. That Yahweh told you, let's go, So that's the first thing. That's the first kind of characteristic that popped out to me. And then later on in 12, the next thing that's sort of assigned to her, the next thing that we sort of see about her is that she is very beautiful. And 11 through 20 is basically like an ode to her beauty. Like because of her beauty, Abraham is prompted to go to her and say, please say you're my sister so that it will be well with me for your sake, for my life will be spared because of you. And all because she's beautiful. And so, reading this from a modern day Western mindset, you're always like, why does that matter? Like, why does it matter how beautiful she is? Especially because a lot of us grew up only hearing the teachings of Paul and Peter. And Paul and Peter really actively try to dissuade women from, being outwardly beautiful. It says don't adorn yourself, don't do fancy hairstyles. And those are just, those aren't commandments, right? Those are just, they're like, this is my opinion. Basically, they're saying those things. But beauty it takes on a whole different meaning when you look at it sort of from the Hebrew mindset, because don't forget, there are many, many women that are described as being very beautiful, who are very strong and very brave and do a lot of really, really great works of Yahweh. And not just women, too. Isn't David described as being, didn't they say you could pick him out of a crowd because he was so beautiful? He was such a beautiful man. So it's men and women both. And I think the idea is that in the Hebrew mindset, beauty, it means something a little different. So, if you look at the word beauty, so consider the word beauty in Hebrew, it's yafah. It's the yod and the pei and the hey. And if you consider each of those letters, the yod, of course, is to work or to make. And then the pei is like a word or the word. And hey is to reveal or make known. And so, I don't think it is too much of a stretch when you look at the word for beauty. What it means is to make the word known. And so that's the kind of beauty that Sarah had inside of her. This sort of inward dedication to Yahweh was causing this youthful glow. And isn't that true? What does it say about Moshe when he was up on the mountain with Yahweh? When he came down, his face shone. And, Sarah is not face-to-face with Yahweh at this time, but, you can tell that because it calls out specifically her beauty, you can tell that she has an internal light, right? That she loves Yahweh. And remember in Proverbs 31 it says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears Yahweh is to be praised. That's a different kind of beauty. That's not the beauty that we're talking about here, that Sarah is. Think about this. When she goes into Abimelech's home, she's 90 years old. Do you really think that it's her physical features that are causing people to be so drawn to her and call her so beautiful? I don't think it is. It's just like today when you meet someone, you could meet someone who's very attractive and there are horrible people, and to you they're the ugliest person in the world. They're black inside. And then you might meet someone who's sort of plain, but yet they're so loving and they're so caring, and aren't you just drawn to them? You want to be around them all the time and sing their praises. And I know I feel that way about people who have this sort of internal light in them. And, to me, that is the kind of beauty that is being reflected on Sarah here, and that's what it's talking about. So we're in chapter 12. It's talking about her beauty, and Sarah decides to grant Avram, her husband's request, that she go along with this story, that she's his sister, so that his life may be spared. And what happens as a consequence? Well, no, I mean, Abraham was extremely blessed. He was extremely blessed because of her. In verse 16 it says, Pharaoh treated Abram well for her sake and gave him all kinds of livestock and everything else. And then it goes a step further, and Yahweh actually plagued Pharaoh's houses. It says with great plagues because of Sarai at that point. So I know that there are differing opinions on this one, but it is my belief that Sarah did not actually become the wife of Pharaoh. So we know that she didn't actually become the wife of Abimelech, right? He says that. It makes it very clear, right? He goes on to say that. And to me, in my mind, these plagues come on immediately. They come right away, and they pretty much prevent her from becoming Pharaoh's wife even for a short time, because in 12 and in 19 there it says, Pharaoh says, why did you say this? See, I was going to take her for my wife. I was going to take her for my wife, but now I don't want any part of this. You guys take all your livestock and go. Get out of here. So although it's not quite as clear as it is later on when she goes into Abimelech's home, I don't believe that she was made Pharaoh's wife for a time. And so this whole scenario basically plays out again, right, in chapter 20 with Abimelech. And again, the consequence is that Abraham is extremely blessed because of her. And those are gifts given to Abraham because of Sarah. So Abraham was this extremely wealthy man, and it's like, talk about breadwinner, like who was doing all the work here? Like she's in there risking her life, and she did this for her because of her love for her husband, and that's fine. Like when Abraham is describing to Abimelech how they came to cook up this story, what happened, how this all happened. He says, when it came that Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to Sarah, my wife, this is your loving commitment that you should do this for me in every place, wherever we go. Say of me, he is my brother. So it's her loving commitment to him. And as far as we know, she doesn't even question this. I mean, she is just very brave, when you think about it, to go in there and spare herself for the sake of her husband. So, you're starting to see now, and then of course Abraham is blessed because of her, and he gets all of these riches because of her. And you're starting to see now already the picture is being kind of painted. There's a lot more to Sarah than just her impatience, her mistake. And that's and we're about to, to come into that chapter, but we start thinking like, okay, wow, this is really an amazing woman. Like I never thought about her bravery. I never thought about her beauty in that way. I never thought about her strength. And but before you get too carried away with that, we come into chapter 16, and then this is the thing that always sticks out in our mind, right? So she gets this brilliant idea that she's going to give her servant, Hagar, to Abraham to give him a child, which she does. And then Sarah becomes extremely jealous of the situation. Well, it says that Hagar treated her with contempt. And actually, if you read some of the non-canonized books, which I don't focus on a lot, but in some of the other non-canonized, like I think in Joshua, the one you were talking about last week, it seems to suggest that there may have been some more stuff going on there too between them, that Hagar really was being quite terrible, and then later on Ishmael as well was kind of threatening Isaac's life. It seemed to suggest that there may be some more stuff going on that we don't really know about behind the scenes. But either way, like, we knew this was going to happen, right? And this is what used to annoy me so much about Sarah. It's like, duh, girl code 101. Like, you're angry because, like, you know what I mean? Like, what did you think was going to happen when he had this child that you, like, gave him? And, but, we have to, before we start thinking too harshly about Sarah, which of course I always did. In fact, I even had a note in my Bible that was like, ugh, crush exclamation point. But before you start thinking too harshly about her, okay, we need to take a step back, right? Okay, we need to look at the bigger picture here. You remember, at this time, they already have the call on their life of the covenant. Yahweh's already in covenant with Abraham, and he's already been telling him over and over that his descendants would be like the sand of the seashore seas, and that like the stars in the heaven, and they would be too innumerable to count. So she already knows that this is their destiny, that this is what is planned for them, right? And she's a woman, and she's kind of quarrelsome. We know she's kind of scrappy. She's kind of a fighter, and so as any kind of women, especially a quarrelsome women, as women, we look at a problem and we want to fix it. We look at somebody who's hurting and we want to comfort them. And we want to stand in the gap. Always. That is our inclination. But the thing about it is, this is Yahweh's plan, and there are no gaps in Yahweh's plan, right? But you can't think too harshly about her. She's over here thinking, in my mind, this is coming from a place where, one, she's not doubting Yahweh's plan. She's not doubting Yahweh. She's not doubting Yahweh's plan. This is where she really quarrels with herself. I think she's quarreling with her own destiny, that she is to be the matriarch of our forefathers, of our faith. And I can certainly relate to that. A lot of times there's times when I think, I know Yahweh can do X, but will he? Or more specifically, will he do this for me? And I don't know. Sometimes you get to thinking, well, maybe I just don't deserve that blessing, or maybe I'm in some other state. She's like, I'm getting older, I need to move this plan along. I need to start doing my part. She's thinking, Yahweh's told us that we're supposed to be built up. We're supposed to have all these descendants. I'm not doing my part. I got to do something here. And I think it proves that. It proves her heart when she gave Hagar to Abraham was not ill-intended. When you look in 16 in verse 2, it says, "See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please go into my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her." So you can see she doesn't really know either. She's just trying to find a fix. She's trying to do what she knows is going to happen. Right now, she doesn't really have all the details, but she Obviously the right thing to do would have been to wait and trust, and that's sort of important too. Go ahead, Dale.
And you can see because she's been barren all of her life, and now she's beyond the age of childbearing.
Yes.
And they say she's going to have a child, and she laughs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm beyond my years. And now she's like second guessing, well, maybe if I do this will fulfill that, and maybe that's what he meant by this.
Exactly. I think that it is her earnest heart, like, well, maybe we're supposed to do this by Hagar. I think she's offering her up. I think she's earnestly trying to fulfill this commandment.
Will or anything like that. I think she was just trying to fulfill that prophecy.
I 100% agree, but I never looked at it that way until I started looking at Sarah. I always would be like, duh, Sarah, girl code 101, but I see that now, and I didn't before. And of course, it ends badly, right? And the whole thing is a disaster. And I think Yahweh is finally like, okay, I've got to give them more of the plan here, because how much more can they like muck up, And that's kind of the moral of the story, right? Is that standing up and saying, in Isaiah, here I am, Yah, send me. Here I am, right? So you're volunteering yourself for this, some godly service, and that's only half of the battle. That's a very important step, that you're ready and willing. The other part is waiting on his instruction, which can be sometime almost harder. I mean, Nikki, how would it be if you went out to war, and then they're like, but hold on, and just like hang out here, hang back, and like don't do anything, just hang out here. You would go stir crazy, right? Like, but that's the thing, is that's the moral of the story, is there are no gaps in Yahweh's plan. And so once you've volunteered yourself, you need to wait patiently for his instruction and his timing as well. Otherwise, you're going to muck everything up. And so, so Yahweh's finally like, okay, I'm going to fill him in a little bit here, because I can see Sarah, and Abraham too, for that matter, is starting to get kind of impatient. They know they're getting up there in years. They're wondering, how much time do I have left? Where are all these babies supposed to be, like popping out? And so in chapter 17, and we'll read the whole covenant, because I really, really like it, starting in 15, going all the way through 21 there, it says, and Elohim said to Abraham, now he is Abraham. As for Sarai, your wife, do not call her Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Sovereigns of people are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, is a child born to a man who is 100 years old, or a Sarah who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, no, Sarah your wife is truly bearing a son to you. And you shall call his name Yitzchak, which of course means he laughed, in reference to Abraham laughing there, which, people think like that's kind of like a curse, but not really, because what's better than laughter? The name itself, aside from them laughing, he laughed. What a amazing name, But anyway, so, and I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him, and I shall make him fruitful and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Yitzchak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. So now he's giving them all the details. He's like, this is when she's conceiving. This is when the baby's going to be born. This is going to be his name. This is going to be my promise to him. It's going to be his descendants. I mean, he's like, I'm not going to leave anything out this time. I can clearly see that I need to give more details here, because these people are mucking it all up. But what's really cool about this is when you look back up in, I guess, right in 15, it says, as for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarah, for Sarai, for Sarah is her name. It says, and I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. So it's just like the same covenant that Yahweh gave to Abraham when he says that he'll be the father of many nations. He's also saying that to Sarah, meaning that in her own right, she is a recipient of this covenant, that she is an equal recipient of this covenant with Abraham, because it was through her and her alone, not Hagar, not anybody else, that our faith was to be passed on through history. And Yahweh even speaks directly to Sarah at times, when the messenger, sometimes not always good, and the messenger came, and there were three, and one of them was Yahweh, and so we don't know exactly which one spoke to her, but when she laughs and then she denies it, and then they tell her to her face, no, you did laugh. But they speak directly to her, and then later on in chapter 18, it says, Yahweh visited Sarah, and he blessed her in the way that he said that he would. So, she also had this connection, and that's what I'm talking about. That was what I'm missing all this time before, is that everything that Sarah does from the day we're introduced to her, from going out from her land, from her relatives with Abraham, all the way through living through this sort of infertility, the stress of this and her aging, all the way through going into Pharaoh's home and Abimelech's home, is like, and her beauty, and we're seeing that she is a servant of Yahweh in her own right, and she is the matriarch of our faith in her own right. And sometimes, we always say, like, somebody says, like, oh, I pray to God, and you say, like, which God? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When you want to distinguish in which God it is. But you could just as easily, I feel like, say, the God of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Like, oh, yeah, that's the one, because obviously she had this desire to follow him and follow his commandments as well. And so we see that she is established in this covenant in her own right. And then the last kind of thing that I want to draw out from these scriptures, from what I kind of learned or saw with Abraham. So we talked about already how Sarah's loving commitment was to go into Pharaoh's home and to Abimelech's home, and how it shows just how much she loves Abraham, right? Like, but I also think that we forget like how much Abraham, I think, truly loved Sarah as well. Remember, it doesn't mention any other wives until after Sarah's death. Even Hagar is never referred to as Abraham's wife. She is always referred to as your female servant. So I think that he's very dedicated to her, and at times he really has to rely on Sarah and on her guidance, on her tutelage. And so, like, for instance, when it's time for Hagar and Ishmael to go out, right? Sarah sees this, she knows it, and Abraham sees it, and he knows it too. But he's weak, right? Because he loves Ishmael. And that's not a judgment on him. I mean, he loves his son, and so this is very painful for him. And so he really has to step back and let Sarah take charge in this moment. And it's not really until Yahweh kind of steps in and he vouches for Sarah, he vouches for her wisdom, and he tells Abraham, "Let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Yitzchak your seed is called." And so I think that Abraham really has to kind of step back here and let Sarah take the reins on this, because it's like too much for him to like send his son away, And in other times too, when he's saying, look, Abraham was no wimp. He's not. He is the patriarch of our faith. I mean, he went out with 300 men and conquered Kedorlaomer and Sodom, and the king of Sodom, and he was very shrewd and very wise. You can see that in his business dealings, and he was very brave. But there are times that we are to rely on our partner, and that's like, oh, poor thing. She's just learning to walk, so. And I think that she's all right. She's fell and hit her head on the chair. So Abraham does that. He relies on Sarah at times, and that's the way that it should be, because in Genesis and 2, when Yahweh looks down and he sees and he says that there is no acceptable there's no acceptable helpmate for the man, right? And in that time he says, I'm going to create an acceptable helpmate. And the word that they use there is kenigdo. And you may have heard this before. Oftentimes people use it to refer to marriage. It doesn't strictly mean marriage, but it kind of has some of those, that connotation, because it actually is, it's a really amazing word, or ezer kenigdo is in its entirety, because nowhere on earth is found its equal for man. And so, the kof in kenigdo, that means similar or equal. And then the nigdo, actually it means opposite. So what we're talking about is an equal and opposite person, people who are to rely on each other. And that's what we see in Sarah and Abraham's relationship. And I had this once described to me before I came into this movement at all. I heard somebody talking about kenigdo once when I was young. And they did this visual thing, and I think I'm going to do it because it has always stuck with me. And so hopefully then this word will stick with all of you. But can I borrow you guys really quick? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We have 2 couples here. All right, so stand against each other. Okay, and now move your feet back out a little bit and start leaning against each other. Okay, this is the visual representation of kenigdo. It is, exactly, that's exactly my point. This is an equal and opposite force, because that's exactly right. If Moshe pushes too hard, she's going to fall over. And he's going to fall over too, right? They're going to fail. And if Blair pushes too hard or doesn't push enough, he's going to fall over, but not just him. She's going to fall over too. They're both going to fail. Okay? That is kenigdo. That is why Yahweh created women for men, is to have this, thank you guys, good job, to have this equal and opposite force, not for women to be necessarily the subordinate. Obviously, wives are to be submissive to their husband, but they are an equal and opposite force, and that's why he created woman. That's the word that he uses. That's what he says. So you have to work together in order to accomplish, Yahweh's will, his covenant, his word, his, the things that he's told you to do. And I think, Abraham's love for Sarah is just kind of punctuated at the start of this parsha, which of course we're actually not going to get into. But when he goes and he buys this cave, the cave of Machpelah, for her burial place. And it's very, very important to him that, well, one, he grieves her. And then it's very important to him that she have an appropriate burial place. He knows that he is to inherit this earth, this land. And so it's important that she be buried there. And later on, of course, he is buried with her in that cave. And, I think his care and attention to giving her, it's like almost an entire chapter talking about how he carefully selected this cave for her and paid this like exorbitant amount of money for it. It is just like to punctuate the fact that, he really, as much as she loved him and followed him, he also loved her, and I think wanted to honor her in his decisions. So I think, kind of the crux of the whole thing is that to look at this covenant made with Abraham without factoring Sarah into that equation as sort of an equal recipient of it is a mistake. And really, they operate as a team. Obviously, it takes 2 to tango. Obviously, Isaac had to come through Sarah. He would not have been born. That is her life, right? So actually, the portion is titled Chayei Sarah, which is the life of Sarah. And people always go, well, it starts out with her death. That doesn't make any sense. But of course, what's it referring to? What is her life? To Isaac. Isaac is her lifeblood, her legacy, the son to whom she gave life, and is to go forward and do these amazing things. And so that's actually what it's referring to. Her life is referring to Isaac. So it took both of them to fulfill this prophecy and to do what Yahweh was asking them to do. And while they both had their faults, Abraham obviously had his faults. We talked about that last week, and Dale brought up how it's encouraging to us when we see Abraham fail sometimes. Even though we always want to point and go like, well, see, Abraham, he did. It's also kind of an encouragement to us because we know that they were imperfect, but of course, in the grand scheme of things, they're trying to move forward. They're trying to make the word known, right? They're trying to reveal the word. So in the end, they're blessed, and Yahweh accepts their effort in that. And it's the same with Sarah. She is flawed, and she does make this sort of graven mistake. But it's the same way, and I don't think we should treat her any more harshly than we treat Abraham when we think about that mistake, and basically just give credit where credit is due to the covenant that was established for the rest of time through her. So anyway, I was really edified by again, nothing that's not just in here, but just looking really carefully. Each time it mentioned her name. And I had intended this. I said, okay, well, this is called The Life of Sarah. I'm just going to go back real quick and create a short, little summary of all the times that her name was mentioned. And then it was like 7 pages later, you're like, actually, I'm just going to. So that was it. I hope you all got kind of a new perspective out of that from her. And I will ask for your thoughts and comments. Yes?
I think we do same thing with Rivka that you were saying about Sarah. We hold in our mind something negative about her, like when she manipulated the hands. But it was really, I think, for the same reason, because she knew what God's promise was, and she was trying to do her part to make it happen, just like we say that Sarah was. And the other thing to me, in all three of these portions that we did today, it's about the proper order of inheritance.
Right.
And the women were so important in that for some reason. And I don't know, you think of the patriarchs, and you think they kind of get all the credit, but then you look back and it's like, no, these women were chosen.
That's what I was going to say.
Specifically.
Yahweh doesn't, he didn't, it wasn't an accident
Right.
who the matriarch and the patriarchs of our family.
Right.
He chose them all specifically. And they chose him. Right? That's the main thing. That's the main thing about Rivka. That's the main thing about us as the bride of Yeshua. We choose him back. We say, yeah, I'm going to come without haste. No, don't hold me up. I'm going to come to my husband.
Right. And, Jacob had 4 wives, but Rachel was the one.
Yes. Yeah.
Joseph was her son.
Yes. And that was exactly the point. Is he didn't. It wasn't a mistake
Right.
who our matriarchs were and who our patriarchs were. They were chosen for a reason.
And even for David.
Yeah.
It brings it out that it's kind of odd that it was Bathsheba that the line was going through, but for some reason, she was the
Okay,
one.
but doesn't it also about Bathsheba talk about her beauty? Doesn't it say that she was very beautiful? That's what I'm saying. To us, it's so foreign. It's almost offensive, right? Because we're in this Western mindset. Why bring up? At the very worst, it's a little offensive. At the very least, it's what's the who cares how pretty she is? You know what I mean? What's the point in even saying that? But when you start to look at it differently and think about this beauty as this sort of as an eternal devotion to Yahweh, then you can start to see why some of these women were chosen.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we see the godly line, then there's that opposition.
Mm-hmm.
There's opposition in both those stories about David's offspring and about Abraham's offspring, And then, of course, with Yeshua, the genealogy we have, we know what that opposition is. It's not actually brought out in the first part of Matthew, but, there's always that opposite side, too.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have many couples throughout the scripture that actually work together, or that they're mentioned that they were doing stuff together, like as specific as we find with Abraham and Sarah. And even to the point that reading in Hebrews chapter 11, that Abraham was counted because of his faith, but Sarah as well. And it says, by belief also Sarah herself was unable to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the normal age, because she deemed him trustworthy who had promised. So her life is so important. And like you said, sometimes we see her in the shadow of Abraham only, but we need to look at her as well as the same importance as Abraham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. That's it.
Good job.
Very
Very good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Sean.
Good job. Very good.
I don't have a clap. That's weird.
You're with a weird bunch.
Peculiar, I'd say. Quite peculiar. All right. The repetition of the Shema. You'll stand for the repetition of the Shema. Shema Israel, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam, Israel, Yehovah Elohim, Yehovah is one. Blessed is the name of His glorious kingdom for all eternity. Amen.
I have set watchmen on your walls, O Jerusalem, all day and all the night continually, who are not silent. You who remember Yahweh, give yourselves no rest, and give him no rest, till he establishes, until he makes Jerusalem a praise in all the earth. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Yeshayahu 62, 6-7. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we do come before you this day and lift up Israel. And Father, we pray for peace there in the land and peace for your people, Israel, who are scattered all abroad, Father. And we know that true peace cannot return to your people until you establish Jerusalem and until you bring your Son back. And we pray for his speedy return, Father. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the Aaronic benediction. Father, you spoke to Moshe saying how to bless the children of Israel. Today, we do not have the presence of Aaron and his sons. So, in their absence, we, as a congregation, will read in English and sing in Hebrew how to bless the children of Israel by saying to them, Yehovah bless you and guard you. Yehovah make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yehovah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. Yehovah,